The latest on the separation of immigrant children from their parents following President Donald Trump's order allowing them to remain with their parents, 3:22 p.m. USN. Marco Rubio has visited a Miami area facility housing more than 1,000 teenage migrants. After his tour Friday, the Florida Republican said he didn't speak to any of the children inside the Homestead complex because of privacy regulations. Officials say all the children are classified as unaccompanied minors, including fewer than 70 who were separated from adult relatives at the border. He said splitting up families at the border was a terrible situation, but the U.S. doesn't have the money or the capacity to hold families together when they are detained by immigration authorities. Rubio said Congress would need to create those kinds of facilities. He added the desire to keep families together needed to be supported with policies that would help prevent people from making dangerous journeys to flee violence in their homelands. 2:05 p.m. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has issued a notice that it may seek up to 15,000 beds to detain immigrant families. The agency on Friday put out a request for information to help in planning for potential new family detention facilities. The notice comes after the administration stopped separating immigrant children from their parents on the southwest border amid public outcry, and officials said they intended to seek to detain families together during immigration proceedings. The agency currently has about 3,300 beds for immigrant parents and their children in family detention facilities. The notice comes amid a scramble by federal agencies to find space for immigrants. The Pentagon says it's drawing up plans to house up to 20,000 unaccompanied children on military bases. 1:15 p.m. USN. Dick Durbin says that 66 of the more than 2,300 migrant children separated from their families at the border in recent weeks under President Donald Trump's zero-tolerance policy are in Chicago area shelters. The Illinois Democrat said Friday 2/3 of those children are below the age of 13. Durbin's comments marked the first time a public official has specified how many of them are in the Chicago area. They remain separated from their parents after Trump this week signed an order to stop separating families who cross the border illegally. The children are being cared at shelters run by Heartland Alliance, a nonprofit human rights organization. 1:10 p.m. Some of the parents who are separated from their children at the U.S.-Mexico border are being held at an immigration facility in suburban Denver, U.S. Customs and Immigration said Friday that 50 parents are being held at its detention center in Aurora. Spokesman Carl Rusnick said he didn't have any more details about how long those people had been held at the center, which is run by a private contractor, the Geo Group. Immigration attorneys say they've been working to get parents released on bond as they try to reunite with their children. 1:05 p.m. Louisiana Democratic state senators have pushed legislation asking Gov. John Bel Edwards to recall Louisiana National Guard troops at the Texas border until separated families who entered illegally are reunited with their children. A Senate committee on Friday advanced the legislation with a 3-1 vote, solely on Democratic support. Republican Sen. Neil Reiser voted against the measure. Louisiana has had a 3-person National Guard team and 1 helicopter at the border since May. Edwards, a Democrat, announced Wednesday that the team will remain until mid-July as planned. Edwards said the crew had no role in separating families, a policy the governor criticized as unconscionable. 1 p.m. The father of the girl who is pictured crying on the cover of this week's Time magazine says the Honduran Foreign Ministry told him that his daughter is detained with her mother in McAllen, Texas, and the two have not been separated. Dennis Varela says he hasn't heard from his wife or daughter in almost 3 weeks. The girl's mother apparently took their daughter to the United States without telling him. Varela, a dock worker who lives in Puerto Cortes, Honduras, said that the ministry had given him the girl's detainee identification number. He was told his daughter was in McAllen with her mother, but nothing else. The girl's photo was apparently taken when she and her mother were first detained by Border Patrol officers and the mother was being searched. 12:50 p.m. A coalition of progressives in Nevada upset with the Trump administration's immigration policy is urging a National Association of School-Based Law Enforcement Officers to withdraw its invitation to U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions to speak at a school safety conference in Reno next week. Sessions is scheduled to address the National Association of School Resource Officers at a Reno hotel casino on Monday. Leaders of more than a dozen labor unions, women's, religious and minority groups sent a letter Thursday asking the association to rescind its invitation to Sessions because of the administration's stand on immigration. They said rolling out the welcome at Sessions would demonstrate complicity with his support for the zero-tolerance policy of separating migrant parents and children at the U.S. Spokesman Jay Farlow of the Alabama-based association had no immediate comment. 11:50 a.m. 4 Democratic state lawmakers from Kansas are demanding that Republican Gov. Jeff Collier be more aggressive in seeking answers about immigrant children housed in Northeast Kansas group homes. They accused Collier Friday of being passive about getting information about reports that some children separated from their parents are being housed by the nonprofit agency The Villages. Collier spokesman Kendall Marr said the federal government didn't notify the administration of its plans and the state has sought information. The Villages confirmed Thursday that it has a federal contract to house 50 unaccompanied immigrant children at 7 group homes in Topeka and Lawrence. But it would not say whether any of them had been separated from their parents during recent crackdown at the border. 11:30 a.m. A lawyer says Friday has marked the first time since May 24 that no parents charged with crossing border illegally in the McAllen, Texas area had been separated from their kids. Efrain Olivares of the Texas Civil Rights Project advocacy group has been interviewing adult immigrants to track them and their children through separate government processing systems. Olivares says the development Friday at the federal court in McAllen appears to be a consequence of a change in policy by the government. A senior Trump administration official told the Associated Press that about 500 of the more than 2,300 children separated from their parents had been reunited since May. Olivares says his group has had contact with 381 parents separated from their children, and that none had confirmed being reunited. He says some children were successfully placed with sponsors, including relatives in the U.S. 10:30 a.m. The UN Human Rights Office says President Donald Trump's decision to stop the U.S. policy separating migrant parents from their children doesn't go far enough. A Trump executive order ended the policy of separations. Families will still be detained just together. Human Rights Office spokeswoman Ravina Shamdasani said Friday that children should never be detained for reasons related to their or their parents' migration status. Shamdasani urged the U.S. to overhaul its migration policy, such as by relying on non-custodial and community-based alternatives, under the logic of care, rather than that of law enforcement. Also Friday, a group of nearly a dozen independent human rights experts commissioned by the UN said the new U.S. policy may lead to indefinite detention of entire families in violation of international human rights standards. 10:25 a.m. U.S. Officials have allowed journalists to tour a South Florida facility housing more than 1,000 teenage migrants but did not let them take photos or record video during the visit. Private contractors who run the Center for Unaccompanied Minors in Homestead, Florida, showed journalists around the campus-like complex for about an hour. The complex includes dorm-style buildings where children sleep up to 12 per room in steel-framed bunk beds, and warehouse-sized, air-conditioned white tents where minors attend classes and watch movies. The children could be seen walking to the dining hall and classes, wearing government-issued cotton t-shirts and gym shorts. Some could be seen playing basketball and soccer, sometimes shouting and laughing. Program Director Leslie Wood said fewer than 70 of the 1,179 children had been separated from families at the border. 8:40 a.m. A coalition of civil rights and student advocacy groups has sued the Boston Public Schools to find out how much student information the system shares with federal immigration officials. The groups, including the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Economic Justice, allege in the suit that the school system and Superintendent Tommy Chong have a disturbing practice of giving student information to immigration authorities. The suit stems from the deportation of an East Boston high school student. The suit says evidence used by federal officials in deportation proceedings included a school report about 2 students who tried unsuccessfully to start a fight. Chong has in the past said the schools don't share student information. A school spokesman said he could not comment because the system had not been served with the suit. 5:15 a.m. A 7-year-old boy and his migrant mother, who had been separated a month ago, have been reunited after she sued in federal court and the Justice Department agreed to release the child. The two were reunited at about 2:30 a.m. Friday at Baltimore Washington International Airport in Maryland, hours after a Justice Department lawyer told the U.S. District Court judge the child would be released. The mother, Beata Mariana de Jesus Mejia, had filed for political asylum after crossing the border with her son, Darwin, following a trek from Guatemala. She said she started crying when the two were reunited and that she's never going to be away from him again. Darwin said he was content and happy with the reunion. The mother and son were to travel to Texas, where they will live while her asylum claim is being decided. 2:25 a.m. Immigration enforcement on the U.S.-Mexico border was plunged deeper into chaos over President Donald Trump's reversal of a policy separating immigrant children from parents. A senior Trump administration official says about 500 of the more than 2,300 children separated from their families at the border have been reunited since May. It was unclear how many of the children were still being detained with their families. The official was not authorized to speak publicly and spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity. In the Texas border city of McAllen, federal prosecutors unexpectedly did not pursue charges against 17 immigrants. One said there was no prosecution sought in light of Trump's executive order ending the practice of separating families. But the president showed no sign of softening in public remarks.